Alright, what's up, trolls and girls? And let's go ahead and just jump into this because we got a long ways to go. So I decided I was going to do kind of a mix. I would read some of these DMs and then I would include some stuff from our call. I figured that would be easier for me. As I read this stuff, it'll probably help me remember certain things that we talked about. And I saw a few people ask why I didn't record it. That's because I wasn't even expecting the call at the time. We had agreed that we would each either pre-record the questions and answers, and then I would put it all together in a video later, or we would do a real call and record it, but that was supposed to be later on. We had DM'd for a while, and then he said he was going to the gym or something, and I started doing something else. And then all of a sudden I got a Discord call about 15 to 20 minutes later, and he said he just wanted to see how it worked and how it sounded, etc. We started talking, and I started asking him some questions here and there, and before you know it, over an hour had passed. And that's when I took that screenshot of the Discord call. And this is 100% why I wanted him to pre-record his answers by himself. Because the last thing I wanted to have happen was we both start rambling, and next thing you know, we have a 2-hour plus call. And I have to either edit that down or just upload it, and people have to sit through it, etc., etc. And that's exactly what ended up happening. All right, so looking at the first picture here, and if you listened to the interview yesterday, you'll be able to corroborate some of this stuff and put pieces together. And that's just how a lot of it works for me. So he tells me he's leaving the country in April. Now, during the call, he tells me it's for work and he's going to the Middle East. I won't say any more than that, and I really don't know if he's being truthful or not, but I'm at least willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. He also said that it's roughly a 6-month assignment, and he won't be around DSP streams at this time. Now, I say I'm only going to share what he gives me permission to, but this was before he just didn't respond and kind of left me hanging, so I had to go with a different plan. He says he's done with Phil, and this is something he says a lot during DMs and during the call. Next picture. He then says everyone knows Phil is full of shit, and I agree with you, OIC. We all know that. We'll touch on that topic a little later. I asked him what account he was using to follow me early on. I have my suspicion of who he was, but he says he has never subbed or commented on one of my videos. I don't believe him and think he even tipped me early on, which is how I assume he tried to get my personal info off of PayPal. He denied it multiple times during the call as well, so I dropped it and said that's fine. I still don't believe him for the record, but it is what it is. So here I ask him if he's tipping Phil under fake names. He says no, and that he has no idea who is doing it. He then says he saved thousands of dollars by not tipping Phil. He even says he's willing to send me pictures of his bank account, or I'm really not sure what he's trying to send me here, but I tell him there's no need to do that. I really don't want to see stuff like that. Again, I'm not trying to expose him, etc. I really just wanted to ask him some questions and see how truthful he was actually going to be. I can't remember specifically on the phone call, but he said he's tipped Phil something like $60 in the last 6 months. I may have the numbers wrong by a little, but he said something similar, very similar to that. Make of that what you will. Next picture. So I'm really not sure what to think. He says that by not tipping Phil and saving money, he has enough set aside to buy Phil a new computer. Now, if you heard the interview, he said this yesterday. People have also been asking Phil to play PC games, and when is he going to upgrade his PC, etc., etc. DSP claims that he doesn't have the money for it and that he can't do it during the quote-unquote hardcore gaming season. And if you've seen his tweets lately, he keeps ragging on PCs and how many errors they have. Whatever, man, it's bullshit. He's making excuses because he literally doesn't want to learn something new or get a new setup, and he acts like a fucking baby when someone brings it up to him. But OIC tells him he has the money for a new computer, which is incredibly dumb. OIC, he shouldn't even have done this. I don't know what you're thinking, but he says that Phil gets mad at him and tells OIC that he's holding this over his head. We both agree that DSP doesn't trust him, but then OIC says that he just saw the email today where Phil got upset at him, and that's essentially why he showed up to Dark Dave Mirrors that night. To me, it's almost like he's lashing out at DSP by doing this. It's very childish, but this whole thing is fucking childish. And I wasn't going to say this originally, but he left me hanging and then he went to do a quote-unquote interview with someone else. So I feel fine saying this now. He says this shit a lot. He leaks stuff every now and then. And now he's talking to detractors publicly, but he's still gonna go back. And the reason he won't trash him or just dump him, so to speak, is because he's afraid of what DSP might do with this information. DSP 100% has OIC's personal info, and he's done shitty things in the past with people's information. And during our call, this came up multiple times, and I even warned OIC to not go out by trashing Phil, because what DSP says in front of the camera and what he does when the stream is off are two totally different things. We then get something very interesting here. OIC says DSP knows that he's doxed people, which contradicts what DSP has said in the past multiple times. He then says that DSP has told him that he doesn't care what OIC does outside of the streams as long as it doesn't affect him. He says he has emails of this and that he may share them someday. Again, you can choose to believe all this or not. This is just what he told me. He says he has roughly 200 emails between himself and Phil. I then ask him why he's messing with Kiwi Farm still. He says he doesn't post there anymore, he only lurks. He says he was IP banned and he can't make a new account. He also says he doesn't use a VPN, which I find very hard to believe. During the call, I asked him about this multiple times and he denied it. I didn't believe it. I thought he was Jim or someone else on Kiwi Farms. And I thought that because Shiro has gone out of his way to tell me multiple times that OIC is 100% Jim on Kiwi Farms. Next picture. He tells me he thinks my content is okay here and that people like watching Phil through detractors, even his own fans. I tell him that I'm starting to wear down when it comes to making DSP content and that I feel like I've made my point, which is true, by the way. But we can go over that in a different video. He then says to look at it this way. Phil is 40 years old and still can't pay his taxes. And if you remember back to when he said the Fraga account, or when he had the Fraga account, if you read those original posts he made on Kiwi Farms, this is kind of what he was saying then. So to me, it lines up that he's felt this way for a while, but he just couldn't walk away quietly for some reason. Maybe it's because of the amount of money he's put into it. Who fucking knows? He says he held out hope until the evidence was too much. And here he's referring to the bank leaks and mobile game spending. Now, during the call, I blatantly told him that I don't believe that's why he stopped supporting or showing up for a while. And that it was actually because he was afraid of someone hacking into Phil's PayPal or email account when all this original shit was going down, and then that person would have access to OIC's info. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in the middle, but I just don't believe that he saw the leaks and mobile game spending and then all of a sudden thought Phil was a lying scammer. And that's what he 100% is. I saw this dumb fuck try to insinuate recently that the bank leaks are fake, and how fucking stupid would you have to be to even entertain that statement? And the answer is pretty fucking stupid. We then go back and forth about who is potentially doing all these fake name tips. I say it's not Lysa for Soul, and it's not. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I've seen more than enough of this guy's messages to know when it's him. I mentioned Patriarchy, who I'm pretty convinced that he's one of them, just based on everything I've seen. OIC asked if Pastry has been doxxed yet, and I say no, that I know of. And I just want to make something clear here. When I say I don't want to put the effort into it, I mean that I don't want to go through all of the trouble to make an hour-long video trying to show what Pastry is doing, or trying to show that Pastry is doing all these tips. It's just not worth the effort for me anymore. I've gone through enough of this bullshit already, and it's time to move on. It's time for someone new to come along and essentially pick up where I left off. He then finishes this picture by saying that he enjoyed my Chicken Man video and that it was probably one of the best that I've made in months, which made me laugh. All right, and here he talks a little bit about Timbo and how dumb he was for continuing to give to Phil, despite everything that's come out in the last few months. I mean, that's a little bit Shawn Michaels there, buddy. Come on. One thing I will say in OIC's defense is that during the call, he wondered if Timbo was a little slow or something like that, and if that was the case, he felt bad about going after him originally and everything that happened since then. Again, make of that what you will. I then tell him that I wonder what Phil truly thinks of Timbo, which is where that email came from in the last video I put out. He says that Phil just sees him as an open wallet, which we all know is true, and that Phil doesn't care about any of them. He says that he openly threatened Kevin, and that did happen 100% in the chat, and he didn't even get a timeout for it. That Phil just doesn't give a shit, and that's because there's money attached. That's all you got to do with Phil. Just dangle that money carrot in front of him, and he'll come out of his cave looking for it. And when he falls on his ass, he'll scurry back into his cave like the roach he is and pretend it never happened. Just like the 6K statue guy, just like the fucking 9K guy. And praise be to Tevin for making videos about those, because we probably would have forgot about them or never even heard of them. All right, and here he says he doesn't even care about the membership. It's just an auto-renew thing for him. This leads to me talking about the number one problem I have with DSP, and that's the amount of money he accepts from people. The same people over and over. I actually don't even have a problem with people supporting him, but he takes advantage of them just way too much. And then he lies about it and feigns distress. Such bullshit. He agrees with me and says that he's given him over $10,000, and that's a lowball estimate. In my opinion, it's $25K at least. But I guess the only people that really know that are OIC and DSP. And I'm not sure that either of them would be honest, but for different reasons. Next picture. Here I asked him why he gave him so much, and he says he just doesn't care about money. And that's really the only answer he has. You know, because he could, essentially. Just make of that what you will. But here he tells me something very interesting, that DSP is going to be sweating this year. Now, he didn't elaborate on this one here or on the call. And again, my intention was not to expose him, so I didn't press him for what it was. So we can only speculate on what this means. Maybe he's saying he won't be around, and so that might hurt DSP, but he already said he hasn't been giving him that much lately, and DSP seems to be doing fine, so I'm really not sure. He then says he has some money in his account and that he doesn't spend for himself, and to be honest, I really don't care about that. All right, and this is more about how he found Phil and why he was there so much. He blames COVID and just being stuck at home with nothing to do. I try to empathize with him a little bit, but as you can see, I tell him that he just went way too far with it. Next picture. Here we both talk about not being able to watch the streams. He says that it looks like garbage anyways. He talks about the, quote, hot new releases reviving his channel, and that Phil just needs to buy time until tax season. He says that it's always the same thing with him, and that it usually comes in quarter cycles. And if you go back and look at the post on Kiwi Farms under Fraga, this is the exact same thing he was saying a year ago, almost to a fucking T. And then I give old Jaxie Boy a mention down there, and his $1,000 tip. And April's coming up pretty soon, Jaxie Boy, and $1,000 ain't gonna cut it this time. You better have a 2K tip ready for your Führer, because that's how it works with pigs. No matter how much you give them, they just look up at you and want a more. All right, and no matter how you feel about him, me, or this whole thing in general, we can all get a kick out of this one. So I was originally thinking, how am I going to verify that it's him 100%? Now, he did screen share a couple of pictures of his Twitch and YouTube while he was logged in, but I wanted something more than that. So I told him I had 3 questions for him, and he had to be present for them. Now, the answers to these questions would only come from him, myself, or someone who has watched all of my videos a bunch of times, and even then, it would be hard to recall them all on the spot like that. So the first one might be common knowledge. I asked him what game was DSP playing the first time OIC ever tipped him, and he answered immediately Banjo-Tooie, and that was correct. It was even under the Ice Mocha Latte name, not OIC, so 1 for 1 there. I then asked him what he called me when he said he was waiting for me to make his part 4 video. He stalled a little bit here and says Mark Bubba, but then he says Cuck, which is the correct answer. And the funny part about that is he called me that in DSP's chat, and maybe like 20 minutes later, he tipped DSP like $40 to get him to the vest. After DSP was begging like a child and low support. And it was just very Shawn Michaels that night. But then we get to the best question, and That was what radio station did he listen to every day on his drive home from work? And I wanted the name and numbers of the station. And as you can see, he got a kick out of that one. A few seconds went by, but then he gave the correct answer and he followed up with some extra information. So those answers were good enough for me. I was convinced that I was talking to the real person. He even gave me a compliment on my detective work back in the day. And here's where things kind of go left a little bit. He tells me he's available on Saturday and that he has a 3-day weekend. Now, I wanted this whole thing pre-recorded because I didn't want it to be some 2-hour random call with no direction, with dead air, and him being able to control the conversation. So at this point, I'm still expecting that to happen. I joke with him that Phil needs his support and to buy in, and he says, fuck Phil. He says that Phil is a piece of shit and he needs to get this out. But maybe one day, he doesn't want to bash him though. Now, compare that to what you heard yesterday. It was never my intent to try to expose this guy or any shit like that. I wasn't trying to get him to shit on Phil. I just wanted to do a Q&A so we could get information on the record. Because when people look back on this arc, the more info out there, the better. Imagine if when Emerald 7 happened, there was interviews out there and a lot of information. Same with King Tut although there was some info out there. Same with the escort saga. What he chose to say yesterday is on him, and that wasn't because of me, and I'm okay with that. It honestly makes me feel, a little bit more comfortable in showing all this stuff. Next picture. This is me telling him that Phil is likely going to see him differently now because he's talking to detractors and it's 100% confirmed to be him. He says that Phil can ban him himself, and we both agree that that's not going to happen. There's just too much money involved for that. But then he says he has something hanging over DSP's head. He didn't tell me what that was here or on the call, and as far as I know, he didn't say it in the video yesterday. This could be him just blowing smoke, or maybe he really does have something. I honestly don't know. He says that even with all the shit he's done, there's a reason that Phil still keeps him around. He says if he can find the email, he will send it tonight, which obviously didn't happen. He says that Fihu and Gokin get brought up in it. Now, I heard him say Fihu's name yesterday and read off some email, but I didn't hear any kind of a reason why DSP keeps him around, etc. If y'all have an idea or if I missed something, let me know down in the comments and we can speculate on it. He also says that I probably know what goes on behind the scenes more than he does, and honestly, he's probably right about that. Here we're talking about Gokin and just how dumb he is. Always hopping back and forth between DSP's chat and detractor videos. OIC says that Gokin didn't sink 10K into Phil like he did, so he's not sure why he can't just pick up and leave. He then says he used to really like Phil. Tell me that doesn't sound like some relationship or scorn lover type shit. I absolutely think he'll be back in the streams in no time. The only question is how Phil is going to respond to it. So here, I asked him if he's still creating fake accounts to sub to DSP. He says in short, yes, but there's only like 5 active at the time. He said something similar in the video yesterday, but I don't believe him. I think he was being about 75 to 80% honest with everybody. But there's still stuff he's holding back for obvious reasons. And the obvious reason is because he's going to go back to Phil eventually. If I had to guess, I would say he's probably 50 of the memberships right now, but that's only my speculation. And a lot of what I say, I base on stuff that I've seen in the past, wording in certain messages, names, etc., etc. He says he's going to cancel them, which he did say in the video yesterday. And I told him don't even worry about saying that because nobody's going to believe you anyways, which is true. He's lied too much in the past. How can you know when he's being truthful? It's almost like Phil. It's the same thing. And again, I don't say that to shit on the guy, but that's just what happened in the past. He says he doesn't care what others think, and he's not trying to win people over with this. And that he doesn't care about detractors or Phil, but, he jumped at the chance to do an interview, a Q&A, and to talk to me for a few hours, so you be the judge of it. He then says there's only a few detractors that he likes, but he doesn't name names. And he says everyone else is too spurgy. He says that Phil is nearly 40 years old and still holding out a tin cup, and that it's funny to laugh at, but it gets old after a while. 2 years and 25,000 seems like a lot to just laugh at someone, But again, these are his words. And it's moments like this that I'm glad it wasn't live, because I can actually break this down. You know, it can't be contradicted with stuff that I've seen in the past and that we all know is true. Next picture. So here's just more talk of me trying to convince him to do it pre-recorded instead of live. This was based off of our DMs alone and before we even got on the call. I could just tell how it was going to go, and I didn't want it to be that way. And I heard him say in the video yesterday that he thought it was, quote, sketchy that I kept insisting on it being pre-recorded. And to be honest, I thought it was sketchy that he was so insistent on it being live. I couldn't figure out why he was so obsessed with it. Here, he says that his phone is 5 years old, his laptop is old as fuck, and he doesn't really have any way of recording the answers for me. I'm not really sure whether I believe this or not. He says he doesn't waste money on himself or anything else for that matter, which is why he was able to blow so much on Phil. But do you really think this guy is running around with a 5-year-old phone and an old-ass laptop? Meanwhile, he has a government job or federal job, whatever it is. It just doesn't add up to me. He then finishes it up by saying he doesn't have nice things. And here's just more of me being suspicious of why he wants to do it live. He says he thinks it would be more authentic. I ask him if it's voice changer related. And if you're not familiar with that, when he talked to Shiro a while back, he used a voice changer to sound like a girl. For what reason, I have no clue. You know, I asked him if he was planning to surprise me. I just really wasn't sure what he was thinking. He then says he's going to keep it PG-13, the cussing down to a minimum, and no racism stuff. And that's one thing I will give him credit for. He could have very easily went on to Proper's channel and just started saying the N-word over and over, or something that would get Proper's channel in trouble, and he didn't do that. And that's also something I was really guarding against. Even though it wouldn't have been live, technically it still would have been pre-recorded. So next picture. We end the discussion. He says he's going to go to the gym, and I was going to do other stuff, but he said he would contact me later on that night. Out of nowhere, and this is why the call wasn't recorded, is because he just called me. I wasn't expecting it. He said it was to just practice and see how it sounded, to see if he could hear me clearly, and we had a lot of problems early on. I had to ask him to repeat a lot of stuff because I just couldn't hear him. The call kept cutting out, etc. So then we would talk about DSP stuff. I would ask him a question here and there. Next thing you know, I look down at my phone and an hour and 13 minutes has already gone by. And that's when I took that screenshot. Plus, I was on my cell phone, not even on my laptop, so not sure that I could have recorded it with good quality anyways. But it doesn't matter now, since he already did the video yesterday and y'all heard what he sounded like. And to be honest, he just sounded like a normal white guy. He then asked me if I was going to record myself reading the questions, and then he was going to record the answers and send them back to me. So you can see we clearly agreed to that on the call, but it didn't happen. No big deal. And he did talk about this yesterday. He says that Goken has it all wrong and that it was actually Anony that wanted to dox all the mods, not OIC. Now, there's really no way to prove this because Anony's not around, so OIC can say whatever he wants. He claims he had no part in any of it, and the only people he actually went after were Timbo and a few other detractors, myself included. I tell him that I honestly just wouldn't know because I wasn't involved in it, outside of what Anony would tell me here and there. He then says that Anony was the snake in the grass, and that's a little bit Shawn Michaels, my friend. So next picture, you can see what he sent me here, and I thought this was pretty hilarious, and I will be using it going forward in other videos. And next picture, I wish y'all could have heard my reaction when I read this. I laughed so fucking much. So this was a screenshot of all the names in either DSP's chat or maybe a restreamer's. And it was probably DSP's chat on Twitch, but at one time, you had all the following people in there. OIC loves Bat. OIC's lover. OIC slobs dented knob. OIC slobs DSP knob. OIC Phil's boyfriend. OIC buys friends. OIC loves Winter. Poor Winter. OIC loves K Money. OIC something Derek. OIC P sitting down. I'm not reading that one. Or the next one. OIC is gay pilled. And OIC agrees with me, and give that motherfucker the thumb. I love that picture so much. We then go on to talk about Timbo and what goes on behind the scenes. He specifically says that DSP is begging in his emails, and this is where I got that Phil email that I read off in the last video about Timbo. We all know that DSP doesn't give two shits about him, or anyone else for that matter, but it's just nice to have the proof of it. And of course, Phil will say it's fabricated and not true. It's not true. Just like he said about the bank leaks the other day. It just shows you what kind of two-faced piece of shit he is, man. OIC then wonders if Timbo is actually mentally disabled and says he feels kind of bad about what happened. It didn't really sound that way in the video yesterday, but it is what it is. He then tells me again that it feels good to be able to share this stuff with somebody. We go back and forth about Phil not caring about other people. His parents get brought up and whether he'll even fly back out if something really does happen to them. And you better fucking go out there, especially after the shit you pulled in 2018, man. About how they were in bad health and you really needed to see them before it's too late. And what do you know? It was just a secret vacation to go out and get married and get some tax money from your mother because you can't control your mobile game spending. It's pathetic, man. Next picture. And then here he remembers how he typed that out on Kiwi Farms when he first joined. And this was one of the first posts he made. He says, I remember the night I typed this out. It was nearly 3 a.m. I tell him that I covered that in the Ballad of OIC, and he says he's going to go back and watch it. And it's true. I tied all of this stuff together. And it didn't take a Q&A or an interview or no shit like that. I put it all together by myself, just based on what I had seen and doing research. So, not to toot my own horn, but when somebody tells me it's speculation or I don't know what I'm talking about, you can kiss my ass. So then here we sign off, and I tell him I'll talk to him tomorrow. I follow up the next day and say, how's it coming along? Do you need any help with anything? He doesn't reply. So I kind of jokingly tell him, you better be dead or in jail, asshole. He doesn't reply. I let a few days go by. I even give him a Discord voice call. He doesn't answer. He doesn't reply. And remember, he said he had a 3-day weekend. So, he said he would work on it. I'm just really not sure what to think. I had already put up that community post about something's coming, and that was my fault for doing that. I should have known better. So a few more days go by, and I decided to make that video about the mobile game spending and include that little email about Timbo. And then I said, fuck it, I'm going to put this video together one way or the other. And Lord, what a miracle. He reaches out to me like a day or two after that and says, hey, I'm still open to do your interview. I can't wait for your next video. Blah, blah, blah. And I purposely didn't reply to him. I left him hanging. I ain't going to lie. I then told him that I was already working on the video and, what it was going to be about. And lo and behold, a live interview with OIC pops up, essentially parroting all the questions I had already written down. But it's all good, man. I ain't upset about it. Because once I knew it was going to be live, I already knew how it was going to turn out. And I knew I could still put together a video that would be way more interesting. And, well, here we are. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. The main thing I'm interested in seeing is how Phil reacts the next time OIC pops up in his chat. I'm already on record as saying OIC is going to keep giving him money. He might tone it down, whatever, but he's not going to leave. He can't leave. And if you listen to the Ballad of OIC, I already explained why. We'll see what happens. Now's his chance to really break away, but I just don't see it happening. Another thing is, I asked OIC multiple times in the call if he was either gay or trans like I had originally speculated on. He said no. He said he's 100% straight. Take that for what you will. He said he really was in Hawaii on his vacation, but he was still modding in DSP's chat. He said it was true. Again, take it for what you will. If I had to sum OIC up, I would say that the guy is just, and this is no breaking news, but he's just lonely. He's cooped up all the time with work. He doesn't have any friends, man. He just doesn't have any friends. And the reason I can say that is because how do you spend 2 hours and 15 minutes on the phone with somebody that you don't really know, that you've never talked to before? And had I did record that call, a lot of it was him talking, and I was just listening, and I was saying, yeah, and every now and then I tried to get off the call, and he would keep talking, and then I'd ask a question, and it would just lead to more. So I think he doesn't have a lot of friends. But DSP ain't your friend, man. And clearly you know this, but for some reason you can't get away from him. You need to just back up and do something else, man. Find something else to put your money into, to put your time into, because this ain't it, brother. And regarding DSP, this is what you deserve, man. This is what you deserve. I hope the next few weeks people are constantly pestering you about this, and you have to just keep going off and keep pausing the game. And I hope you have your little Hitler hat on when you do it too, because it just makes it that much funnier. But this is what you deserve. And when you treat people like this, well, shit like this happens. And now you have to deal with it. Punk ass bitch. All right. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. I mean, I know with the interview yesterday, it wasn't exactly the same. But, you know, the main point of it all, man, the main point of it is that when people look back on this in 2 or 3 years, there's videos and there's information out there, actual information, not speculation. So, you know, to me, that's important. Maybe other people don't give a shit, but to me it is. Let me give a couple of quick shout outs and then I guess an update on the next video, then we'll sign off. Quick shout out to Tuna Sandwich. You know, he's tipped me multiple times, always has a nice message for me. Appreciate it, brother. For Retro's sake, a lot of love he always shows me, man. I'm going to put his channel down in the comments. There's 3 channels I'm going to put down in the comments. You know, I'm asking you to please sub to these people. Especially, there's always people that say, I wish I could support you, but I can't right now financially. If you sub to these 3 people, I will take that just as much as support financially. You know, it means a lot to me, and I like to help people, especially when they're on the come up. So, you know, if you can't support me financially and you want to, sub to these people and let me know that you did, man, because it means a lot to me. Dustin had a very nice message for me, and, you know, it was very encouraging, especially what would happen with the YouTube monetization. Hood Hustler, constantly supporting. You know, it's never a ridiculous amount, but he's always trying to help, and I appreciate you, homie. Brian, special shout out to Brian. Tipped me $50, man. And he's tipped me before. And it's always very humbling when people are willing to go out of their way like that. So thank you so much, brother. And this one, I'm not sure about, man. Gorilla Pimp. Y'all are going to have to let me know down in the comment section. How do we go forward with this one? I've been hearing this name constantly, and he's messaged me on Twitter here and there. And, you know, there's just, I don't know, man. Y'all let me know what y'all want to do in the comment section, how we want to proceed with this one. The next DSP video will probably be up in about a week. After that, I've got a new series coming, not related to DSP in any way. So we're going to try it, man. We're going to try it. And I think this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way Tevin did it. He used DSP as a stepping stone. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use you as a stepping stone, DSP. And that's perfection, because you use people. You step on people, you take their money, and you don't give them shit in return, man. And the way you use people, I'm going to use you, buddy. And, you know, we'll see what happens with this next series. Don't be afraid to tell me you don't like it. If you think I need to do something else, you know, we'll see what happens. I already got the idea in my head, and I think y'all are going to like it, but that remains to be seen. Thank you for always supporting me. Thank you for always riding with me. I will talk to y'all again very, very soon. And as always, a fucking go.